A widowed billionaire decides to live like an ordinary man and takes his daughters to a simple dinner. By mistake, a woman joins their table and transforms the night with empathy, laughter, and genuine affection. In that unassuming dinner, the beginning of a new family is born. Night fell over London as Augustus Vance adjusted the cheap tie he had bought that morning. The mirror reflected a different man from the one who appeared on the covers of business magazines, without the tailored Italian suit, without the Swiss watch, without the impeccable haircut. Just a 42-year-old man with deep circles under his eyes and a gaze that carried the weight of many responsibilities. "Daddy, do I look pretty?" asked Beatrice, his 6-year-old daughter, adjusting the red bow in her curly hair. "You always look beautiful, my princess," he replied, watching the reflection of Beatrice and her twin sister Bianca, who was distractedly playing with a doll in the corner of the room. The apartment where they were was not the triplex penthouse on Oxford Street, nor the mansion in the Hamptons, nor the beach house in Brighton. It was a small townhouse in the Clerkenwell district that had belonged to his mother, Mrs. Constance, a seamstress who raised her son alone after becoming a widow. A place Augustus kept intact, like a memory of times when happiness didn't depend on financial statements or stock market shares. "Are you ready for our adventure?" he asked, bending down to be at his daughter's height. "But are we really going out to eat with you?" questioned Bianca, the more suspicious of the two. "Aunt Regina never lets us." Regina was the governess who had looked after the girls since birth. Strict and overprotective, she meticulously followed their father's instructions to keep the heiresses of the Vance Empire away from the spotlight and any danger. "Today is different, my love. Today it's just the three of us, like normal people." Augustus knew the experiment was risky. As CEO of the Vance Group, controlling 12 companies in the technology and renewable energy sectors, his face was known throughout the country. But London was too big, and in that traditional neighborhood, dressed in simple clothes and driving the old Ford Fiesta that had belonged to his father, he was just another ordinary Englishman. The chosen restaurant was in the Fitzrovia district, a family-run Italian establishment that had existed for over 50 years. No Michelin stars or renowned sommeliers, just tables with checkered tablecloths, walls decorated with old photos of immigrants, and the inviting smell of homemade tomato sauce. They arrived early as planned. Augustus had met Denise through a dating app where he had created a profile as Gus, math teacher, 42, father of twins. No lies, just strategic omissions. With a math degree before getting an MBA from Harvard, he did indeed tutor his daughters. The rest, the billions, the companies, the 3,400 people who worked for him, were details that didn't fit into that experiment. "You can draw while we wait," Augustus said, handing the girls the notebooks and colored pencils he had brought in his backpack. The two were soon engrossed, focused on their colorful worlds. Augustus checked his watch. 20 minutes late. He checked his phone, the old one without trackers, which he used exclusively for that adventure. There was a message from Denise. "Sorry, but I just looked at your photos more closely. I didn't realize you had young children. I'm not in a place to deal with a full package, especially from someone with your financial profile. Good luck." His financial profile. The irony was almost palpable. Augustus took a deep breath, putting his phone away. It wasn't the first time a woman had given up upon learning about his daughters. 4 years after Helen, his wife, had passed away, he still couldn't establish genuine connections. Women who knew his true identity approached him for the money. Those who didn't, like Denise, distanced themselves due to the apparent lack of it. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Beatrice complained. "We'll leave in a minute, Princess. I don't think our date is going to happen." It was at that moment that a woman hurried into the restaurant, curly hair tied in an unpretentious bun, simple floral dress, fabric bag full of books. She looked around, appearing confused, until her gaze met Augustus's. A luminous smile spread across her face as she walked to the table. "Sorry, I'm late." The traffic on the Strand was impossible, and then the bus broke down. "You must be Charles, right?" "I'm Nina." Augustus opened his mouth to correct the mistake, but something stopped him. Perhaps it was her sincere smile, perhaps her uncomplicated manner, or the fact that she hadn't hesitated upon seeing the children. Instead, she was already bending down to greet them. "How lovely. You must be the princesses of the house, aren't you? What are you drawing?" "A castle," Bianca replied shyly. "And you?" she asked Beatrice. A cat. But it's not good. May I see? Nina asked gently. She looked at the drawing with genuine attention. It's beautiful. You know I can show you a trick to make the whiskers look more real, may I? Beatrice nodded, handing over the pencil. With a few strokes, Nina transformed the awkward cat into something recognizable. Augustus watched, fascinated. Helen had been the last person to achieve this kind of immediate connection with the girls. You're a literature professor, aren't you? I love your profile, talking about Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Clarice Lispector. I rarely find someone who appreciates good literature on these apps. Augustus swallowed hard. It wasn't his profile. It wasn't his date. But for the first time in a long time, he felt seen as an ordinary man, not as the billionaire Augustus Vance. He made an impulsive decision. Actually, I prefer math, but I love literature too, he replied with a hesitant smile. These are Bianca and Beatrice. It's a huge pleasure to meet all three of you. Have you chosen what you're going to eat? I'm starving. The waiter approached and Nina eagerly picked up the menu. The lasagna here is legendary. Have you tried it? The night wore on, and with it, Augustus's guilt diminished, replaced by a feeling of lightness he hadn't experienced in years. Nina told funny stories about her job at the public municipal library, imitated different voices to charm the girls, and spoke of books with contagious passion. My mother was a cleaner at a school. We didn't have money to buy books, but she always brought discarded ones home. She read to me by candlelight when the power was cut at the end of the month, she recounted, helping Bianca cut her spaghetti. That's how I fell in love with stories. Today I see the same sparkle in the eyes of the children who frequent the library. Books save lives, you know? Augustus thought of the millions invested in technology, the billion-pound acquisitions, the private jets. When was the last time something as simple as a book moved him? The moment for the bill arrived, bringing Augustus back to reality. He had a few notes in his pocket but realized they wouldn't be enough. A miscalculation in his plan. Nina noticed his embarrassment and naturally pulled out her wallet. It's on me today. You can pay next time. No, I can't accept. Please, she said without any judgment in her gaze. You gave me a wonderful evening. It's the least I can do. As they left the restaurant, the twins held Nina's hand as if they had known her for years. At the moment of farewell, she bent down and promised them, I'll set aside some special books for you to visit at the library. Beatrice spontaneously hugged her, a rare gesture for the usually reserved girl. Nina reciprocated with equal affection, and when her eyes met Augustus's over the child's shoulder, something invisible connected them. Something that went beyond names, social positions, or bank accounts. Good night, Charles, she said, waving as she boarded the bus. Good night, Nina, he replied, knowing that regardless of the name he used, that woman had seen something that many, even knowing his true identity, would never be able to see. 3 days after the unexpected encounter, Augustus found himself thinking about Nina with unsettling frequency. Sitting in his office on the top floor of the Vance building, in the financial heart of Canary Wharf, he barely paid attention to the presentation on mergers and acquisitions that his financial director was conducting. Augustus, do you agree with the proposal? Marcello's voice brought him back to corporate reality. Pardon me, I need to analyze the numbers more carefully. He adjusted his Italian silk tie, suddenly feeling it too tight. Can we resume this discussion tomorrow? After the team left, Augustus remained in the glass-walled meeting room, contemplating the London skyline. Down below, millions of people lived their ordinary lives, facing crowded buses, worrying about bills to pay, celebrating small daily victories. Nina was one of them. Her comment about working at the municipal library kept replaying in his head. Which one could it be? London had dozens. He asked his personal assistant, Camilla, who quickly provided a complete list of the city's public libraries. Any special reason, Dr. Vance? I'm considering a reading promotion project, he replied, avoiding his assistant's inquisitive gaze. That afternoon, after picking up his daughters from their private bilingual school, Augustus did something unusual. He dismissed the driver and personally drove the armored SUV. Where are we going, Daddy? Asked Bianca, curious that they were taking a different route than usual. We're going to visit a special place. You like books, don't you? Like Nina's? Beatrice asked, excited. Exactly like Nina's. Augustus chose the London Metropolitan Library, the largest public municipal library in London. If Nina worked at a city council library, there was a good chance it would be there. He parked 2 blocks away and, for the first time in years, walked the city center streets without security guards. The girls, accustomed to moving only between controlled environments, observed everything with fascination. Street vendors, street artists, the buzz of the real city. Upon entering the majestic historic building, Augustus felt a flutter in his stomach that he hadn't experienced since adolescence. He was nervous. He, who closed billion-pound deals without hesitation, feared meeting a librarian. "Good afternoon. We'd like to visit the children's section," he asked the receptionist. "Second floor to the left," she replied automatically, without looking up from her computer. The children's section was a colorful and welcoming space, with low shelves within children's reach and cushions scattered on the floor. The twins were immediately enchanted, running to explore. Augustus watched them, realizing how rarely he saw them so free and spontaneous. "Can I help you?" A male voice interrupted his thoughts. A young man with glasses and a city council badge approached. "I'm looking for an employee named Nina. She mentioned some special books for my daughters." "Nina, Oliver? She works in the outreach department on the 4th floor. She handles community projects." Augustus thanked him, feeling his heart race. Now he had a surname, Oliver, as common as it was special. "Girls, shall we explore more of the library?" On the 4th floor, the atmosphere was different, more sober, with study tables and focused people. In a side room with the door ajar, Augustus finally saw her. Nina was sitting at a desk covered in books, cataloguing them with methodical care. Her curly hair tied in the same unpretentious bun, reading glasses perched on her nose, lips moving silently as she made notes. "Nina!" Beatrice exclaimed before Augustus could stop her, running towards the woman. Nina looked up, surprised. Her face went from confusion to recognition, and then to understanding, all in seconds. She stood up, adjusting her simple dress. "Hello, Beatrice," she replied with a genuine smile, bending down to hug her. Then she faced Augustus with an expression that mixed curiosity and something deeper. "Charles, I didn't expect to see you here. We came to look for books," Bianca explained, approaching shyly. "Really?" Nina directed her gaze back to Augustus, raising an eyebrow. "What an interesting coincidence. Girls, why don't you explore those books over there?" Augustus pointed to a nearby shelf. When the children moved away, he took a deep breath. "I needed to see you again. And finding out where I work was the way you found." She crossed her arms, but didn't seem angry. "Charles, if that's really your name." "Augustus," he corrected, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "Augustus Vance." Nina remained impassive for a moment, then a spark of recognition appeared in her eyes. "The Augustus Vance? From the business magazines? From the Forbes list?" She let out an incredulous laugh. "No, you're joking. Unfortunately, I'm not." She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to reconcile the simple man from the restaurant with the public figure she knew from headlines. Why the charade? Some kind of social experiment to laugh at us mere mortals? "No," Augustus protested, suddenly desperate for her to understand. "It was an attempt to find something real, someone who would see me as a man, not as a bank account." And lying seemed like the path to authenticity. Her tone was firm, but there was a softness in her eyes that gave Augustus a faint hope. "I didn't lie about anything important. I'm a mathematician by training. I'm a single father. I love my daughters more than anything. The only difference is that instead of teaching in a public school, I run a few companies." "A few companies," Nina repeated, shaking her head with a mixture of irritation and amusement. 12 multinational conglomerates, if I recall the last report. "You read about me." "I work in a library, Augustus. I read about everything." She sighed, looking at the girls who were leafing through illustrated books. "They're adorable, and they seem genuinely happy here, away from the spotlight. It's rare to see them like this," he confessed. "Since we lost Helen, they've lived in a protective bubble, just like me." Nina observed him for another moment, then her expression softened. "What do you want from me, Augustus Vance?" "A chance, a coffee, an honest conversation this time." "Why me? There must be hundreds of sophisticated women lining up to meet London's most coveted billionaire." "Because you cared about my daughters before you cared about me. Because you laughed when the spaghetti fell on your dress instead of making a scene. Because you paid for dinner when you thought I couldn't afford it, without making me feel less for it. Nina looked away, visibly affected by his words. Tomorrow is my day off, she finally said. I'll be in Hyde Park near the lake at 10 o'clock. Bring the girls and a decent picnic, and Augustus— She looked at him seriously. No more lies, please, not even by omission. The next day, under the blue sky of a perfect Saturday, Augustus personally prepared a picnic basket, much to the surprise of Regina, the governess. He chose fruits, sandwiches, natural juices, nothing extravagant, nothing that couldn't have been prepared by any ordinary father. At the park, Nina was already waiting for them, sitting on a checkered blanket, a book in her lap. She wore jeans, a simple t-shirt, and trainers. No makeup, no jewelry, just her. Upon seeing the girls, her face lit up. They ran towards her as if they were old friends reuniting. I brought something for you, Nina said, taking 2 colorful books from her bag. This one is called The Missing Piece, and this is The Color Monster. They're about feelings and how to deal with them. Can you read to us? Bianca asked. Of course I can. Augustus watched Nina read to his daughters, making different voices, pausing to discuss the illustrations, answering their questions with infinite patience. The scene was so natural, so devoid of artifice, that it seemed to belong to another life, a life he didn't know he desired until that moment. After the girls got distracted feeding the ducks in the lake, always under Augustus's watchful eye, he and Nina finally talked. He told her about the pressure of managing the empire built by his father, about the difficulty of raising 2 daughters alone after Helen's sudden passing, a victim of an aneurysm. How do you manage to balance all that? Nina asked, genuinely interested. I don't always succeed, he admitted, with an honesty he usually reserved only for himself. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm not present enough for them, that they'll grow up surrounded by privileges, but lacking real experiences. Nina listened without judgment, sharing in return stories from her own life, her humble childhood in the East End, her single mother who worked 2 jobs, nights studying by candlelight, the scholarship for Library Science College, the dream of creating an itinerant library program for underprivileged communities. Books were my escape and my salvation, she explained. I want to give that to other children, to show them they can dream beyond the horizon they see. When the sun began to set, neither of them wanted the day to end. The girls, exhausted and happy, fell asleep in the car on the way back. As he dropped Nina off at her modest apartment in Hackney, in the north of the city, Augustus felt a growing certainty. This woman, with her authentic simplicity and generous heart, was slowly tearing down the walls he had built around his heart. Thank you for the day, he said, not knowing how to express the storm of feelings that flooded him. Nina smiled, that luminous smile that had first captured his attention. Thank you for finally being honest. As she leaned in to kiss his cheek goodbye, a photographer hired by a gossip magazine who had followed the car from the park captured the moment. Neither of them noticed the discreet flash that, in the following days, would unleash a storm in their newly connected lives. On Monday morning, Nina's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages, calls, social media notifications, all from unknown numbers. Confused, she finally answered a call from her colleague, Marcia. Nina, for heaven's sake, did you see today's Hello magazine? It's all over the gossip sites. What are you talking about? You and Augustus Vance, the billionaire and the librarian, the new romance shaking London. There's a photo of you 2 in Hyde Park with his daughters. It looks like a scene from a soap opera. Nina's stomach dropped. Within minutes, she found the images online. There they were, captured in a moment of apparent intimacy. Her kissing his cheek, the girls asleep in the car. The sensationalist headline speculated about the businessman's secret romance, a widower for 4 years, with a simple public servant. Another site had already investigated her life, publishing details about her salary, address, and even her mother's name. Upon arriving at the library, a small crowd of reporters awaited her at the entrance. Flashes fired as she tried to pass. Microphones were shoved in her direction. Invasive questions launched like darts. Did you meet on a dating app? Is it true he disguised himself as an ordinary man? Did you know who he was from the start? How do you feel about being a stepmother to mini-billionaires? Nina managed to get inside only with the help of library security guards. Inside, her colleagues looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and astonishment. The institution's director, Dr. Sandra Myers, immediately called her into her office. "Nina, I respect your work, but this situation is disrupting the library's operations. We have children and researchers here. I suggest you take a few days off until this media circus dies down." It wasn't a suggestion, but a veiled order. With suppressed tears, Nina gathered her belongings and left through the back, avoiding the reporters. On her way home, she received a message from Augustus. "We need to talk. Can I send a car to pick you up?" "No," she replied. "I need space to process all this." In his office, Augustus faced his own storm. George Davies, public relations director of the Vance Group, seemed on the verge of a nervous breakdown. "Augustus, we need to issue an official statement immediately. Investors are uneasy. Shares fluctuated this morning, and the board is asking for explanations about this." "Librarian." "Her name is Nina," Augustus replied coldly, "and my personal life is not the board's concern. Your personal life impacts the company's image when it becomes national news. We need to do damage control." "What damage, George? I met a woman, spent a day in the park with my daughters. Where's the scandal in that?" George slid several printouts across the table. "The problem isn't what you did. It's the narrative they're building. Billionaire disguises himself as a teacher to test women. The prince and the commoner. The Cinderella of the municipal library. The press is turning this into a fairy tale, with touches of deception and manipulation." Augustus ran a hand over his face, exhausted. "And what's your suggestion?" "We issue a statement saying you're just friends. We offer an exclusive interview to The Spectator, controlling the narrative. Perhaps a generous donation to public libraries to show you've always been interested in literature." "I will not use Nina as a marketing strategy," Augustus cut in, "and I will not lie about my feelings to please shareholders." George stared at him, astonished. "Feelings? Augustus, you barely know this woman. I know enough to know that she deserves more respect than we're seeing here." At that very moment, in the two-bedroom apartment in Hackney, Nina tried to calm her mother on the phone. "Mum, it's not at all what they're saying. It was just a misunderstanding that turned into something different." "Different how, Nina? You're getting involved with Augustus Vance. That man is worth more than the GDP of some countries. People like that don't mix with people like us without ulterior motives." "He's not like that, Mum. He's just a man trying to raise two daughters, like you did with me. The difference is, he has an army of employees and billions of pounds to help him. Daughter, be careful, that world is not for us." Mrs. Zelda's words echoed a concern Nina also felt. Different worlds, incompatible realities. How could anything real be built under these circumstances? That night, a knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Opening it, she found a security guard in a suit. "Miss Oliver, I have a package for you." It was a simple box with a handwritten note. "Sorry for the chaos. The girls made this for you. Augustus." Inside the box were drawings made by Bianca and Beatrice, colorful castles, cats of all colors, and amidst the children's illustrations a rustic portrait of 4 people holding hands, a tall man, 2 small girls, and a woman with curly hair. Below, in childlike handwriting, "Our family." Nina sat on the living room floor, holding the drawing against her chest, tears silently streaming down her face. 3 days passed without contact. Nina received a call from the library, informing her that she would be temporarily transferred to the administrative sector, away from the public, for her own protection. In practice, a way to hide her behind the scenes. Her life was being rewritten without her permission, her identity reduced to the billionaire's librarian. On the 4th night, when the press harassment had finally subsided, Nina heard another knock on the door. Apprehensively, she peeked through the peephole, expecting to see another persistent reporter. Instead, she found Augustus, not the impeccably suited businessman from the magazines, but the simple man she had met at the restaurant, wearing jeans and a basic shirt. Beside him, Bianca and Beatrice held a new drawing. Nina opened the door slowly, feeling her heart pound. "Hi," he said, looking as vulnerable as she had never imagined a man with so much power could look. "The girls missed you, I did too." "We made another drawing," Beatrice announced, holding out the paper. It was a colorful library, full of happy children. In the center, the same curly-haired figure with a book in her hands. "It's you telling stories," Bianca explained. "Are you going to tell us stories again?" Nina felt a lump in her throat. "Come in," she finally managed to say. The small apartment, decorated with shelves full of books and plants, seemed tiny to accommodate Augustus's presence. He observed the space with genuine interest, noticing photos of Nina with her mother, framed diplomas, covers of books signed by authors she admired. "Can the girls watch TV for a moment?" Nina asked. "Of course," Augustus replied. "Girls, behave, all right?" When they were finally alone in the small kitchen, the silence hung heavy between them. "How are you?" he finally asked. "I've been removed from public service. My phone won't stop ringing. I've received everything from indecent proposals to offers to sell my story. Some reporters are harassing my mother." She sighed deeply. "Other than that, I'm great." "Nina, I'm so sorry. More than I can express. I never wanted any of this to happen. I know. It's not your fault, or mine. It's simply the reality of your world." She leaned against the kitchen counter. "A world that is not mine, Augustus. It doesn't have to be this way." He took a step towards her. "I can protect you. I can use my influence to what? Silence the press? Buy back my privacy? That would only confirm what everyone is saying, that I'm some kind of charity project for a powerful man. That's not how I see you. How do you see me, then?" The question hung between them, loaded with possibilities. Augustus chose his words carefully. "I see a woman who showed my daughters more genuine attention in a few hours than many people in years. I see someone who understands the value of simple things I forgot amidst the corporate chaos. I see Nina, not the librarian, or whatever label they want to give you." Nina felt something melt inside her. The barriers she had erected in recent days began to give way. "And what do you want from me, Augustus?" "Time," he replied simply. "Time to show that we can build something real despite the differences. Time for my daughters to get to know the incredible woman I saw from the very first moment." In the living room, Beatrice and Bianca laughed at something on television, a pure and carefree sound that filled the small apartment with life. "They already adore you," Augustus continued. "And you?" Nina encouraged, moving closer involuntarily. "I want the chance to get to know you away from the spotlight and the labels, to discover who Nina Oliver is beyond the first impression." Before she could answer, Bianca appeared at the kitchen door. "Aunt Nina, can we sleep here tonight? I'm sleepy." Nina and Augustus exchanged surprised glances. He was about to deny the improbable request when Nina smiled. "I have a small guest room, and we can make a sheet fort in the living room." That night, in the small apartment in Hackney, a new configuration took shape. Nina and Augustus prepared a simple dinner. Pasta with tomato sauce and grated cheese, the twins' favorite dish. They built an improvised fort in the living room, where the girls settled with cushions and children's books. Augustus read, while Nina made different voices for the characters, eliciting laughter from the children. When the girls finally fell asleep, Nina and Augustus sat on the apartment's small balcony, sharing a bottle of cheap wine, talking in whispers so as not to wake them. "You're full of surprises," he commented, watching her in the soft light coming from the living room. "Who would have thought the serious librarian would be an expert at sheet forts? And who would have thought the powerful CEO would know how to do 3 different pig voices?" Nina smiled, feeling lighter than she had in days. That night, something changed between them. It wasn't just attraction or fascination with differences. It was the recognition of possibilities, of bridges that could be built between seemingly distant worlds. When Augustus finally fell asleep on the sofa, with his daughters in the improvised fort and Nina in her room, all under the same small, cozy roof, a seed of belonging had been planted. Outside, some photographers still lurked, hoping to catch the billionaire. Inside, however, there was only a family forming, discovering its own rhythm, protected, at least for that night, from the expectations of the outside world. The following weeks brought a new routine for Nina and Augustus. With the persistence of media attention, they adopted a strategy of discretion. Instead of meetings in public places, they opted for more intimate moments, dinners at her apartment, afternoons at Augustus's old family home in Clerkenwell, occasional visits to his penthouse when security guaranteed total privacy. The twins blossomed in this new dynamic. Bianca, once so reserved, now talked non-stop about the books Nina recommended. Beatrice began to draw more frequently, always including the 4 of them together in her colorful illustrations. The girls started attending the small public school, where Nina developed a voluntary storytelling project on Saturdays, mingling with children from all social classes without the curious glances they normally attracted. One Sunday afternoon, as Nina helped the girls with a school assignment in the living room of the Clerkenwell townhouse, Augustus observed the scene with a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced since before Helen's passing. "You're smiling," Nina commented, looking up to meet his gaze. "I'm happy," he replied simply. Later, when the children fell asleep in Augustus's old childhood bedroom, they sat on the back porch, where Mrs. Constance used to hang clothes to dry. "My mother would have loved you," Augustus commented, holding Nina's hand in his. "She always said a man is worth what he builds, not what he owns." "And what are you building, Augustus Vance?" Nina asked, with that frankness that so disarmed him. "Something that cannot be measured in financial statements or valued by shareholders," he replied, leaning in to kiss her. The next day, while Augustus participated in a video conference with foreign investors, Nina received an unexpected call. The library director, Dr. Sandra, summoned her for an urgent meeting. The grave tone left no doubt that something serious had happened. Upon arriving at the library, Nina was met with embarrassed glances from colleagues. In the director's office, besides Dr. Sandra, were the city's culture director and a man in a suit Nina had never seen. "Nina, this is Dr. Paul Mason, legal advisor to the Department of Culture," Sandra introduced, visibly uncomfortable. "We have received some complaints about your conduct." "My conduct?" Nina repeated, confused. "Miss Oliver," the man intervened, "your relationship with businessman Augustus Vance has generated inappropriate situations for a public servant. We have records of paparazzi harassing children at the library, employees being approached by reporters, and, more seriously, allegations that you are using your position to facilitate business for the Vance Group." "That's absurd," Nina protested, indignant. "I have never mixed my personal life with my work." "Unfortunately," Sandra continued, "public perception is different, and as public servants, we must protect the institution's image." What followed was a series of vague accusations and insinuations about conflict of interest. The final verdict came as a blow. Nina would be transferred to a municipal archive in the Far East End, away from working with children, away from the projects she had developed with such care. "It's temporary," Sandra assured her, unable to meet her gaze, "until the situation normalizes." Nina knew it was a punishment disguised as a transfer. She left the library feeling betrayed by the institution she loved so much. In the car, the tears finally came, bitter and hot. Her phone rang. It was Augustus. She didn't answer. That night, Nina received an unexpected visit at her apartment. Mrs. Zelda, her mother, who rarely left her home in the East End to go to the city centre. "Mum, what happened?" "I came to see how you are," the grey-haired woman replied, hugging her daughter. "I heard about the transfer. A colleague of yours called me, worried." Sitting in the small kitchen, mother and daughter shared coffee while Nina unburdened herself about the recent events. "I'm being punished for something I didn't do, Mum, for feeling something I didn't plan." Mrs. Zelda observed her daughter with wise, tired eyes. "You really like him, don't you?" "I do, and the girls too. But sometimes it feels like the whole world is conspiring to separate us." "The world always conspires against true love, daughter," the old woman philosophized. "Your grandmother told me that when I fell in love with your father, a white man, son of merchants, while I was just the daughter of the black maid, no one bet on us. And yet you stayed together. For 20 years until he passed away." Mrs. Zelda took her daughter's hands in hers, calloused by decades of domestic work. "If the feeling is real, Nina, it's worth the fight, even if the whole world doubts it." After her mother left, Nina made a difficult decision. She picked up the phone and called Augustus. "We need to talk, not over the phone." An hour later, he arrived alone, without a driver or security guards, using the old Ford Fiesta that had belonged to his father. "What happened?" he asked, seeing Nina's distraught face. She explained the situation at the library, the punitive transfer, the veiled accusations. With each word, Augustus's expression hardened. "This is unacceptable. I'm going to call the mayor right now and—" "No," Nina interrupted firmly. That's exactly what I don't want. I don't need you to use your power to solve my problems. What do you want me to do then? Stand by and watch you be wronged? I want you to understand what this means. She took a deep breath. Augustus, our worlds are too different. As long as we're together, I'll always be seen as someone who's with you for personal gain, and you'll always be the powerful man who can solve any problem with a phone call. So what are you saying? That we should give up? The question hung between them, laden with anguish. Nina looked at the man in front of her, not the billionaire from the business magazines, but the dedicated father, the seamstress's son, the man who made pasta for his daughters and read stories before bed. I'm saying we need to find a balance that is ours, not imposed by the outside world. Augustus sat beside her on the small sofa, taking her hands in his. What do you really want, Nina? Without thinking about me, the girls, your job, or the media. What do you, Nina Oliver, desire for your life? The question caught her by surprise. How long had it been since she had thought only of her own desires? Since college, perhaps. Since she took over caring for Mrs. Zelda after her hip surgery 3 years ago. Since she dedicated herself completely to the library projects, giving up opportunities in other cities. I want to make a difference in children's lives, she finally replied. I want to bring stories to places where books don't easily reach. I dream of a mobile library that can go to the peripheries, to under-resourced schools, to isolated communities. Augustus's eyes lit up. What if we could make that dream come true? What do you mean? An independent foundation, no connection to the Vance Group, no my name plastered on it, something created and run by you with total autonomy. Augustus, I don't want you to finance my projects. That would only confirm what everyone thinks. I'm not talking about charity, Nina. I'm talking about partnership, about building something together, something bigger than both of us. In the following weeks, the idea took shape. Nina requested unpaid leave from the city council, a decision that cost her sleepless nights but brought unexpected freedom. With Augustus's discreet help, but mainly using her own contacts in the cultural sphere, she created the Story Caravan, a project of itinerant libraries that would bring books and storytelling to public schools and communities in the periphery of London. The first library bus was adapted in a workshop in Greenwich, painted with vibrant colours and illustrations by local artists, including drawings by Bianca and Beatrice themselves. The interior was equipped with shelves, colourful cushions, a small stage for presentations, and an audiovisual system for showing educational films. Nina recruited fellow librarians, retired teachers, and university volunteers to form the first team. On the afternoon of the caravan's inauguration, at a municipal school in Tottenham in the Far East End, Nina watched the children explore the books with fascination. Augustus was there discreetly, without drawing attention, just another adult helping to organize the activities. The twins mingled with the other children, participating in the storytelling, without privileges or special treatment. Look, Aunt Nina, I found one just like the one you gave me, exclaimed Bianca, showing a copy of The Colour Monster. How wonderful! Why don't you read it to your new friends? Nina suggested, moved to see the shy girl naturally take on the role of storyteller for a small group. Later, when the activities ended and the children returned to their homes, Nina and Augustus sat on the steps of the colourful bus, watching the sunset over the London periphery. Are you happy? He asked. More than I imagined possible, she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. The twins played a few meters away, under the watchful eye of Mrs. Zelda, who had come to honour her daughter's big day. The old woman chatted animatedly with Regina, the girl's governess, exchanging recipes and stories about the children's mischief. Look at them, Nina commented, pointing to her mother and Augustus's employee, now laughing like old friends. Who would have thought? Different worlds, same people, Augustus philosophized. At that moment, Beatrice ran up, a drawing in her hands. Look what I made! It was a colourful illustration of the library bus, with Nina in the driver's window and a crowd of smiling children around. In the upper corner, she had written in crooked letters, Mummy's Caravan. Nina froze as she read the words, looking nervously at Augustus. It was the first time one of the girls had called her that directly. He smiled, gently squeezing her hand, giving her the silent reassurance that everything was all right. It's beautiful, my love, Nina replied, hugging the girl with tears in her eyes. That night, after dropping Mrs. Zelda home and taking the library bus to the secure garage they had rented, Nina accepted the invitation to sleep at Augustus's penthouse. The girls were already accustomed to her occasional presence, but this time it felt different. When the children finally fell asleep after a storytelling session, Nina and Augustus sat on the panoramic balcony that offered a breathtaking view of the illuminated city. "Beatrice called me Mummy today," Nina commented, still processing the emotion. "Does that bother you?" "It scares me a little. It's an immense responsibility." Augustus took her hands in his. "Nina, you've already earned that place in their hearts and in mine." Under London's starry sky, with the city at their feet, Augustus and Nina sealed a commitment that went beyond social conventions or external expectations. It wasn't a fairy tale between a prince and a commoner, as the media insisted on portraying. It was a real story of two people who, despite differences in origin, shared essential values and the courage to build something new together. The story caravan grew in the following weeks, attracting positive media attention, this time focused on the social project and not on the romance of its creators. Nina regained her professional confidence, discovering that her passion for books and children could flourish beyond the walls of the municipal library. Augustus, in turn, rediscovered a simplicity he had lost amidst board meetings and quarterly reports. He began to dedicate more time to his daughters, to delegate responsibilities in the company, to regularly visit the Clerkenwell townhouse where he had grown up. Nina's presence in his life was not just a romance, it was a constant reminder of the values his mother, Mrs. Constance, had taught him. On an ordinary afternoon, while organizing donated books for the caravan, Beatrice looked at Nina seriously and asked, "Are you going to stay with us forever?" The question, in its childlike simplicity, carried the weight of all the uncertainties that still hung over their relationship. Nina looked at Augustus, who awaited her answer with the same interest as his daughter. "If you want me around, yes," she replied, feeling her heart race. "I do," Beatrice affirmed with conviction. "I want you to be my mummy forever." The child's words echoed in the space between them, filling it with possibilities and promises. At that moment, Nina knew that regardless of external obstacles, she had found her place. Not in Augustus Vance's luxurious world, nor restricted to her old modest life, but in a new territory they were building together, where differences were not barriers, but complements. 6 months had passed since the creation of the Story Caravan. The project that began with a single library bus now boasted 3 colourful vehicles circulating throughout Greater London, bringing books and cultural activities to underprivileged communities. Nina had assembled a dedicated team of educators, storytellers, and university volunteers, transforming her dream into a reality that impacted thousands of children. Her relationship with Augustus and the twins also blossomed, establishing new rhythms and traditions. Friday nights were reserved for dinners at the Clerkenwell townhouse, where Augustus cooked recipes he had learned from his mother. On Saturdays, they participated together in the caravan's activities. Sundays were for picnics at Regent's Park or strolls through the city's historic centre, a simple routine that built precious memories. The media, initially obsessed with the billionaire's romance, gradually lost interest in the love story to focus on the social impact of the project. Nina, once portrayed as a modern Cinderella, came to be recognized for her work at the helm of the caravan. Augustus, in turn, began to be seen in a different light, not just as the ruthless CEO of the Vance Group, but as a man committed to social causes. On a Saturday morning, while Nina organized books donated for the caravan, she received an unexpected call from Dr. Sandra, the municipal library director. "Nina, I hope I'm not interrupting." "No, I'm just getting everything ready for the storytelling session. I've been following your work with the caravan. It's impressive what you've built in such a short time." "Thank you," Nina replied cautiously. Since her departure from the library, contact with her former boss had been minimal. "Actually, I'm calling to propose a partnership. The Department of Culture is restructuring the municipal library program, and we'd like the Story Caravan to be a model for new initiatives." Nina remained silent, processing the unexpected proposal. "I know your departure wasn't under the best circumstances," Sandra continued, "but sometimes we need distance to see people's true worth. What you've built out there is exactly what you always championed within the library." The proposal was tempting, official validation of her work, access to public resources, the chance to further expand the caravan's reach. But Nina hesitated, remembering the treatment she had received months ago. "Can I think about it?" "Of course, but know that the door is open for you, Nina. It always has been." That afternoon, as the community children gathered around Bianca and Beatrice, who now told stories with Nina's same passion, she watched with a full heart. The twins, once shy and protected in their privileged world, now interacted naturally with children from all backgrounds. Augustus, sitting among the community parents, watched the spectacle with evident pride. Later, walking together through the Tottenham community, where volunteers distributed books to families, Nina shared the call she had received. "What do you think?" she asked, as they ascended a narrow alley, greeting residents who already knew them from their frequent visits. "I think it's an opportunity to expand your impact," Augustus replied. "But the decision is yours, Nina. The caravan is your project, your creation." "Our creation," she corrected. "Without you, without the girls, this never would have existed." He smiled, squeezing her hand. "Without you, the three of us would still be trapped in a bubble of privilege, disconnected from the real world. You brought us back to life, Nina." That night, after an intense day of activities, they took the girls out for dinner at a simple pizzeria in Fitzrovia, the same neighborhood where everything had begun months earlier, with a mistaken encounter at an Italian restaurant. The twins, exhausted but happy, fell asleep in the car on the way home. "Shall we go to the townhouse?" Augustus suggested, referring to the Clerkenwell home that had become a refuge for their forming family. In the back garden, under a surprisingly starry sky for London standards, Nina and Augustus sat on the wicker chairs that had belonged to Mrs. Constance. "I've been thinking a lot lately," Augustus began, pouring 2 glasses of the wine they had brought. "About?" "About belonging, about home, about what truly matters." Nina watched him attentively. She knew that reflective tone well. "When Helen passed away," he continued, "I thought I would never find a true home again. I built companies, accumulated resources, created a fortress to protect the girls. But a home is not made of walls or bank accounts. It's made of people," Nina completed, "of small shared moments." "Exactly." Augustus placed his glass on the coffee table and took something from his pocket. It wasn't a luxurious jewelry box, but a simple package wrapped in colorful paper and satin ribbon. "The girls helped me make this." Intrigued, Nina unwrapped the package, revealing a handmade ring made of small, colorful stones intertwined with gold wire. "These are stones we collected together on our trips over the past few months," he explained. "The blue one is from Brighton Beach, where we went swimming. The green one is from the botanical garden. The red one is from the crafts we bought in Richmond." Nina held the ring carefully, touched by the significant simplicity of the gift. "It's not a Tiffany-encoded diamond," he continued, "because our story was never about luxury or ostentation. It's about unexpected encounters, daily choices and bonds we built with patience and truth." Augustus knelt before her, not with the rehearsed gesture of a powerful man, but with the authentic vulnerability of someone offering his heart. "Nina Oliver, you transformed our house into a home. You transformed our days into stories. You transformed my world and the girls' world with your smile, your strength, and your generous heart. Would you accept me as your life partner, husband and companion, for all the chapters we have yet to write together?" Nina's eyes welled up. It wasn't just a marriage proposal. It was the recognition of a shared journey, of different worlds that intertwined to create something new and precious. "Yes," she replied simply, extending her hand for him to place the handmade ring on her finger. "For all the chapters, all the stories, all the days." They sealed their commitment with a long kiss, under the same stars that illuminated the entire city, from affluent neighborhoods to the peripheries, from luxurious penthouses to the communities, reminding them that despite apparent differences, all share the same sky. The next morning, when the girls discovered the news, their reaction was pure joy. Bianca and Beatrice jumped around the house, displaying drawings they had secretly prepared for the occasion, illustrations of a colorful wedding, with books instead of flowers, and all the characters from their favorite stories as guests. "Now you're going to be our official mummy," exclaimed Beatrice, hugging Nina tightly. "The paper only confirms what the heart already knew," Nina replied, moved. In the following days, as the news spread among friends and family, Nina made her decision about the municipal library's proposal. After a long conversation with her team at the caravan, She decided to accept the partnership, but with her conditions: autonomy for the project, maintenance of its original essence, and priority expansion to the city's most deprived areas. Meanwhile, preparations for the wedding began. Not a grand event as would be expected of the CEO of the Vance Group, but an intimate celebration in the garden of the Clerkenwell townhouse with only the truly significant people in their lives. 2 weeks before the chosen date, Nina received a surprise. Upon arriving at the caravan office, she found Augustus and the twins waiting for her with a large envelope in their hands. "What's this?" "An early wedding gift," Augustus replied, as the girls smiled, complicit in the secret. Inside the envelope were official documents: the deed to the Clerkenwell townhouse, transferred to the name of the Story Caravan to become the project's permanent headquarters. "Augustus, this is—" Nina was speechless. "It's the right place for what you've built," he explained. "The house where my mother taught me to love stories will now be a space where other children can discover that same love." The gesture represented much more than a real estate donation. It was the symbolic fusion of the worlds they had united, the genuine simplicity of the townhouse where Augustus grew up with Nina's passion for sharing knowledge. The wedding took place on a sunny spring afternoon. The townhouse garden was decorated with elegant simplicity. Colorful paper lanterns hung from the trees, rustic tables covered with lace tablecloths made by community artisans, arrangements of wildflowers in ceramic vases produced by children in the caravan's workshops. Mrs. Zelda, moved, helped her daughter get ready. Nina opted for a simple white cotton dress with delicate embroidery, a crown of flowers in her hair, and no jewelry other than the handmade ring Augustus had given her. She was radiant in her authenticity. The twins, dressed in matching light blue dresses, scattered flower petals along the path, announcing the bride's arrival. Augustus waited under the old mango tree in the garden, wearing a simple suit without a tie. Not the powerful businessman from the business magazines, just a man in love about to formalize a union that already existed in essence. The ceremony, conducted by a family friend judge, was brief and moving. Their vows, written by themselves, reflected the unique journey they had traveled. From accidental encounter to conscious bond building, from initial distrust to full trust, from apparent differences to essential similarities. "You taught me that true wealth is not measured in figures," Augustus declared, his voice choked with emotion. "It's in the smiles of our daughters, in shared moments, in the courage to be authentic." "You showed me that it's possible to transcend labels and expectations," Nina replied, "that we can build bridges between different worlds and create something unique that is solely ours." When the judge officially declared them married, it wasn't just two people who united, but families, stories, and possibilities. The twins ran to hug them, forming a circle of 4 people who, through unexpected encounters and courageous choices, had become a family. The party that followed was a celebration of authenticity. Mrs. Zelda danced with executives from the Vance Group. Caravan volunteers chatted animatedly with international investors. Children from the communities served by the project played with the children of powerful entrepreneurs. For one afternoon, the social barriers that normally divide London seemed dissolved, replaced by shared joy. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in orange hues, Nina and Augustus escaped for a moment alone in Mrs. Constance's old sewing room, now transformed into a small office for the project. "Happy?" he asked, hugging her from behind as they watched the party continue in the garden through the window. "Fulfilled," Nina replied, leaning against his chest. "Did you ever imagine that a mistake in an Italian restaurant could bring us here?" "It wasn't a mistake," Augustus philosophized. "It was destiny correcting the course I had lost." At that moment, Beatrice and Bianca ran into the room, bringing a new drawing they had created together. The illustration showed the townhouse transformed into a large, colorful library with children of all colors playing in the garden. In the center of the image, 4 figures holding hands represented the family they had built. "For you," Beatrice said, handing over the drawing with pride. "It's our wedding gift." Nina and Augustus observed the illustration with emotion, recognizing in it not only the children's love, but also the future they were building together. A future where social differences were not barriers, but opportunities to build bridges. Where books and stories connected worlds. Where unexpected encounters could transform lives. "How you know what I like most about this whole story?" Nina commented as they returned to the party, each holding one of the girl's hands. What? Augustus asked. That it was never about the billionaire and the librarian. It was always about two people who, despite all differences, chose to see beyond appearances and build something genuine. As they walked back to the garden, where friends and family awaited them, Augustus reflected on the journey that had brought them there. He who had built a financial empire seeking security after losing Helen had found true wealth in his daughter's smiles, in the love of a woman who saw him beyond the zeros in his bank account, in the simplicity of shared moments. Nina, who had dedicated her life to stories and books, became a co-author of her own love narrative. Not an idealized fairy tale, but a real story, with challenges, difficult choices, and the imperfect beauty of authentic life. Together, they had rewritten the script that the world had tried to impose on them. They were not the prince and the commoner of the tabloids, nor the billionaire and the opportunist of malicious comments. They were simply Augustus and Nina, two souls who met at the wrong table in an Italian restaurant and, against all odds, built a home in the space between their different worlds. And as they danced under the colorful lanterns in the garden, surrounded by people from all backgrounds, united by the celebration of love, they knew that their story was just beginning. New chapters awaited, new challenges would arise, but they would face everything together, with the certainty that the strongest bonds are those woven not by convenience or convention, but by daily choices, mutual respect, and genuine love. A love that, like the best books in Nina's library, transcended categories, shattered expectations, and left deep marks on all hearts it touched. Dear listeners, we hope Nina and Augustus's story has touched your hearts. For each of us, there is an unexpected encounter capable of completely transforming our journey. If this narrative has stirred emotions in you, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe to our channel, and activate notifications. Every week, we bring new stories that explore the complexities and beauties of love in all its forms. In the sidebar, you'll find a special playlist with other equally moving English stories. And tell us in the comments, do you believe that people from such different worlds can build something true together? We look forward to reading your reflections. Congratulations on reaching the end of this emotional journey through the 5 chapters of Nina and Augustus's story. This narrative, set against the social contrasts of London, brought authentic British characters to life in a love story that overcomes social barriers and prejudices. The 5 chapters I created faithfully follow the original premise, adapting it to the British context with local cultural elements such as the historic districts of Clerkenwell and Fitzrovia, the reality of public municipal libraries, and the contrasts between the corporate elite of Canary Wharf and the simpler communities of the London periphery. Each chapter was carefully developed to maintain narrative cohesion and the gradual development of the story, culminating in an emotional ending that celebrates authentic love and the ability to build bridges between different worlds. I hope you enjoyed this British adaptation of the provided premise, transformed into a captivating drama with all the requested elements: British characters, local setting, exciting twists, and a call to action organically integrated at the end. Can I create more stories in this style, or make adjustments to this narrative according to your preference?